Hey, Dr. McElhaney.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning to you. How are you?
Good. This is your day.
Yeah, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yeah, I'm trying to combat the nerves a little bit. I don't think it's I guess not bad nerves, just excitement and eagerness and all the
Yeah.
good stuff.
It's your study. You know it. You did it.
Yeah.
You're just sharing what you did
Yes.
and what you found
Yes.
out.
Yes. Yes. Definitely interesting. Definitely
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, so how are things with you?
Pretty good.
Enjoying the warmer weather?
Yeah, if the wind could die down. We're supposed to get rain this weekend, so
Yeah, I think it's supposed to get pretty severe.
where are you again?
I'm in DeSoto.
DeSoto. Yeah, I thought you were close by. Yeah, hopefully it's not as like they say. One of my granddaughters has her senior prom Saturday night. So
Oh, that'll
last
be exciting.
last year they had monsoons, and now here we are with rain in the forecast again. So hopefully the weathermen are incorrect as far as where it'll hit.
Yeah, I know, right?
All right, I'm going to go to turn my audio off here so you can focus. I noticed when I came in that it said it was recording. I don't know if that was intentional or not.
I
Yeah, it
don't either.
automatically, once you enter the room, it automatically starts to record.
Is it doing that now?
Oh,
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
okay.
So we'll get started here shortly. And welcome,
Okay.
Dr. McElhaney. I appreciate you joining us today. We'll just wait for our other committee member and then we can
Okay.
jump in.
All right.
Okay. How you doing today, Dr. Perez?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I'm excited for you. Looking forward to you presenting.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. So I'm going to step away. We'll get started here in a few minutes.
Okay.
James, if you don't mind putting up your PowerPoint,
Okay.
your slides, go on and do that. Okay, good, good. All right, so we'll stand by and wait for Dr. Patterson to join us.
I guess can everyone see that? Okay.
Yeah, I can see it. Dr. McElhenney, can you see it? Okay, we got someone, Liz, on there. I'm not sure if that's Dr. Patterson on another
I don't I
computer.
don't I don't think so. I think she's just spectating.
Oh, okay, okay. Do you know who she is or?
I believe I saw her in the class that I had. The only reason I kind of assumed that is because I looked at the guest list in the email and I saw her
Okay,
name on there.
okay. I just saw her text. She's observing. Welcome, Liz.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate you joining us and observing.
Yeah, so do I.
Okay, uh, I just sent an email to Dr. Patterson. I'll give it another minute. I understand there's been some Zoom issues, some Zoom problems the last couple of days. It's not just been at ACU, but it's been across many campuses. I think both here in the United States and across uh, the world and so forth. There's been some issues with Zoom, so that may be part of the problem why he has not been able to access, or he hasn't logged in yet. But I'll give it a minute, and then what we're going to do is we'll go on and proceed with the dissertation defense. It is being recorded, and so what we'll do is I'll let him know, and I'll let ACU know, so that way he could view the recording, and then he could reach an agreement with us at a later time. So I just don't want to delay the defense, and I want to give James the opportunity to present, and then Dr. McElhaney and myself, we could deliberate, and then we could wait for Dr. Patterson's, his input at a later date. Hopefully tomorrow, whenever.
Okay.
Okay, let's go on and get started here. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to James Robinson Final Defense on Bridging the Digital Skills Gap, Positive Leadership in Aerospace Industry 4.0. I just wanted to thank Dr. McElhenney and Dr. Patterson for all their help and support as James has traveled through this journey to reach this important milestone. Without your help, your support, your guidance, and your mentorship, we wouldn't be here today. So, what I'd like to do is now, James, turn it over to you. I know you've worked very hard to get to this day, and I just want to congratulate you. And now it is your opportunity to provide your defense. But a quick word, what we're going to do is we're going to go through the defense. You will defend your dissertation. After you have completed your presentation, uh, myself and Dr. McElhenney will ask you questions. And then once you've answered our questions and we've had some comments, if Liz is still around, we'll probably, depending on time, maybe give her the opportunity to make some comments. And then what we'll do is I've got access to the breakout rooms. I will place you in a breakout room, and then Dr. McElhenney and I will deliberate. We'll discuss your defense, the merits of your defense, and then we will, get back with you. Now we won't. I may share what we decided, but like I said, since Dr. Patterson is not with us, it may be a result of unable to access Zoom. He may be having problems with Zoom because I mentioned earlier there has been some issues with Zoom across the country and so forth. So the final decision will wait until we hear from him after he's had a chance to view the video. So I just want to make sure I just shared that with you, just kind of the process, and either pass with distinction, pass with revisions, or no pass, and so forth, which is very rarely occurs, and so forth. But I'll go over all those at the end. But I just wanted to just make you aware of those. The date is April 17th, and the 2025. The time I have is 11:36 a.m. Eastern time, and I assume it's 10:36 Central time there in Texas. So with those notes being taken, James, I am now turning the presentation over to you, and best wishes, and I'm excited to hear your presentation.
Awesome. Well, I guess before I get started, I would like to extend gratitude to Dr. McElhaney, Dr. Patterson, and of course, yourself, Dr. Perez, for all of your guidance, your feedback, your direction. And without further ado, Bridging the Digital Skills Gap, Positive Leadership in Aerospace Industry 4.0. So for our agenda, we'll briefly recap the study's background, the statement of the problem, the purpose, its research questions, a brief review of the literature, the theoretical framework, the research method, as well as its alignment, limitations and delimitations. Then we'll move on to the participants, data collection, coding and analysis, establishing trustworthiness, the findings, its connection to the research literature, as well as the recommendations for future practice and research. And we will round it out with some closing reflections. The aerospace manufacturing industry has always been a driving force behind innovation, national security, as well as highly skilled jobs. But now it's evolving faster than ever. Industry 4.0 technologies such as artificial intelligence, automation, the industrial Internet of Things are changing manufacturing processes, but that comes with a growing challenge, the digital skills gap. It's not just about being familiar with the technology, it's more about bridging what workers know today and what they need for tomorrow, especially across a multi-generational workforce. Uh, that's where leadership comes in. Research shows that effective leaders foster cultures that include learning and adaptability. My study explores these strategies, leadership strategies, and how they can help close that gap and guide teams through this digital transformation. The problem my study explores is the growing digital skills gap in aerospace manufacturing. As Industry 4.0 technologies like automation and data analytics become standard, many workers lack the skills to keep up. This gap threatens innovation and long-term growth. The challenge is even greater with a multi-generational workforce. Each group learns differently and adapts at different paces. My research takes a look at how leadership can bridge both the skills gap as well as the generational divide to support real digital transformation. The purpose of the study is to examine Industry 4.0 impact on aerospace manufacturing, explore leadership strategies to bridge the skills gap, understand generational differences in technology adoption, as well as identify ways to strengthen workforce readiness. My research questions explore how Industry 4.0 is changing aerospace manufacturing and how organizations can prepare their workforce to use these technologies effectively. Um, my research question one addresses how is Industry 4.0 changing manufacturing roles? How do generations adapt to new technology? What leadership styles best support digital adoption? What drives workforce development success? As well as how is a learning culture sustained within these organizations? My review focused on two key questions while I was conducting my literature review. How is Industry 4.0 reshaping the aerospace workforce? And what kind of leadership supports that transformation? Industry 4.0, driven by technologies like cyber physical systems and digital twins, is reshaping how aerospace manufacturing operates. Metaglue et al. Described these shifts, while Hernandez de Menendez et al., as well as Shu et al., noticed slowed and limited adoption as a result of growing digital skill gaps, especially with tools like augmented reality and cloud platforms. Burton et al. And Gadomska Lila pointed out that generational diversity added yet another layer of complexity, thus complicating training needs and adapting to technology. Leadership stood out across the literature, and research by Cameron and Cortellazzo et al. Discovered that trust, communication, and support are essential for leading organizational change. Still, this transformation is not easy, and researchers such as Stornelli et al. Warn challenges such as limited budgets as well as internal resistance can slow progress. Overall, the literature highlighted that people-centered leadership is key to bridging both digital and generational divides. I chose Everett Rogers' Diffusion of Innovations theory because it offered a lens for understanding how new technologies spread throughout social systems, aligning well with my focus on bridging the digital skills gap across generations. Key characteristics to the theory included relative advantage, compatibility, complexity, trialability, and observability. These characteristics are significant in examining how digital tools and technologies are perceived and can also be used to understand the barriers and facilitators to adoption. So why choose diffusion of innovations theory? It helps explain how workforces adapt to new technologies. It highlights common barriers as well as offers practical guidance for leaders managing change. And the theory promotes a culture of continuous learning, supports hands-on experimentation through trialability, as well as help assess organizational readiness. In short, it does offer a roadmap for making digital adoption more sustainable over time. For this study, I utilized a qualitative approach for my methodology because I wanted to explore the deeper stories behind how leaders as well as employees experience digital transformation in aerospace manufacturing. I conducted semi-structured interviews with 15 participants across 4 generational cohorts and various job roles. This format allowed for structured yet flexible conversations, as well as helped me uncover insights directly tied to my research questions. One change since my prospectus defense was the issue of audio recording. I initially planned to audio record all my interviews, but 12 out of the 15 participants declined audio recording, mostly due to privacy concerns, especially in a workplace setting, which is understandable. So to adapt, I implemented my structured note-taking system that still allowed me to capture depth and detail. To maintain rigor throughout data collection, I took shorthand notes during the interviews and expanded them immediately afterward. I included nonverbal observations such as voice tone, emotional shifts, and pauses. I also conducted member checking at the end of each interview by summarizing responses and giving participants a chance to clarify and or expand on their responses. And finally, I digitized all notes and transcripts and uploaded them into in vivo qualitative software where I conducted my coding and analysis. Despite the variation in my data collection, my triangulated approach, combining structured notes, field observations, and member checks, I still was able to ensure credibility and trustworthiness of my findings. For analysis, I utilized Rogers' diffusion of innovations theory, and I focused on the 5 innovation characteristics. The framework helped me interpret how participants perceive new digital tools and how leadership influenced their adoption across multi-generations. A few takeaways stood out given the limited recordings. The structured note-taking did not weaken my findings. If anything, it helped me stay more present and engaged throughout the interviews with my participants. The core themes that emerged that included generational learning preferences, leadership communication, and cultural resistance were strong and consistent, and they aligned with my theoretical lens. There were also no major discrepancies between my research plan and what I observed, just a deeper understanding of how leadership truly shapes digital readiness in a multi-generational workforce. In short, my methodology gave me the structure I needed, the flexibility that my participants requested, and the rigor necessary for a meaningful, ethical, and credible study. For my research alignment, the purpose assesses Industry 4.0's impact on workforce development. Rogers, diffusion of innovations theory, acts as a lens and guides my study. The research questions flow from the purpose. The research literature supports each component in question, and the interview questions align with my research questions. The limitations included the study was conducted in a single aerospace manufacturing organization, and there was a limited sample size of 15 participants uh, that may not be transferable across all aerospace sectors. The delimitations, the study focused on Industry 4.0 adoption in aerospace manufacturing and excluded other industries. Also focused on workforce development rather than the technical details, and also evaluating cross-generational differences, as well as the leadership strategies specifically related to digital skills development. I began by selecting a diverse group of 15 participants from within an aerospace manufacturing organization in the southwestern region of the United States. This group included professionals from 5 different functional areas, individuals consisting of leadership, engineers, IT professionals, supply chain, and frontline operations. I intentionally sought out representation across all 4 generational cohorts. baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, and Gen Z in order to evaluate how individuals engage with technology and learning. The participants' years of experience ranged from just under 5 years to over 2 decades, offering both fresh perspectives as well as deep institutional knowledge. To protect confidentiality, each participant was assigned a pseudonym, such as P1, P2, P3, and so on, which allowed me to preserve the richness of their stories as well as respect their anonymity. So before I started my formal interviews, I conducted a pilot interview to test and refine my interview guide. I chose a participant with direct experience in both digital implementation and workforce development within the aerospace industry. They were a great fit because they understood the technology side and how it impacts the people on the floor, which was exactly the perspective that I needed to make sure that my questions worked in real world settings. The pilot served as a refinement stage and helped me realize that some of my original questions were a bit too broad and could be interpreted in many different ways, depending on someone's role or experience level. One of the most important changes was the flow of the interview. The participant pointed out that starting with big picture questions about leadership or long term impact felt too abstract right out of the gate. Based on that, I moved more job specific and hands on questions to the beginning. To the beginning and placed the broader conceptual questions later on in the interview. That simple change made the interviews feel more natural and helped participants ease into the conversation. I also noticed that some responses from the pilot participant were a bit short, so I added follow up prompts to the guide, such as, can you describe a time when this worked or did not work? Or how did others respond? Or what made that a challenge for you? By doing that, I was able to draw out richer, more detailed stories. Lastly, the participant reinforced how important it was to remain flexible as an interviewer, which gave me, which gave my guide the structure that I needed. And I also found that leaving room to follow up on unexpected comments made the conversations a lot more meaningful. The pilot data itself was not included in my final analysis, but the feedback from that session directly shaped and strengthened my interview guide. It helped me to improve the clarity, flow, and depth of responses and made sure that I was asking the right questions in the right way. To collect data, I use semi-structured one-on-one interviews with 15 participants currently working in the aerospace manufacturing industry. My interviews lasted between 45 and 60 minutes, and I scheduled them to make sure participants had enough time to share their thoughts without feeling rushed. As previously mentioned, for data collection, I initially planned to audio record all interviews, but only 12 of the 15 participants uh, declined to the interviews. So to account for that, I slightly adjusted my method and I implemented a detailed note-taking framework in addition to the audio recordings. So here's how that worked. During each interview, I made brief on the spot notes to capture key points and aligned each participant's response with my interview guide to ensure consistency as well as alignment. I immediately, following each session, spent 30 to 45 minutes expanding those notes into full narrative reflections, adding verbatim quotes, clarifying meanings, and capturing the full context of what the participant was sharing. I also added field notes, taking notes of observations such as the setting of the interview, any interruptions, or if someone seemed particularly enthusiastic, nervous, or distracted. What made these interviews really rich was not just what people said, but how they said it. Often paid close attention to nonverbal cues, such as pauses before answering, which sometimes showed hesitation, body language, such as leaning in when participants discuss something that they particularly cared about. Also noticed facial expressions, crossing of the arms, nervous twitch, blinking of the eyes. And I also took note of the tone of voice, which would sometimes shift when discussing leadership or trust in technology. The nonverbal cues definitely enriched my understanding of what was being said and were duly noted during analysis. After each interview, I wrote personal reflections and I kept a journal that helped me to begin identifying patterns and emerging themes. In my personal reflections, I would often ask myself what stood out. Was the participant optimistic or skeptical about digital transformation? Were there contradictions between their words and expressions? Did they experience did their experience mirror or oppose any participants that I had previously interviewed? And if so, why? The reflections guided my analysis, and they gave me early insights into possible themes and patterns. Lastly, I employed member checking to conclude each interview. I would verbally summarize the participants' key points and ask them to confirm or clarify if needed. And this also added a layer of validation to ensure that I was accurately representing their perspective. My approach to coding and analysis was guided by Braun and Clark's six-phase model of thematic analysis. Their framework gave me a really clear way to move from raw interview data to codes and ultimately to meaningful themes. As I worked through the coding and analysis process, I frequently found myself following their framework exactly, starting with familiarizing myself with the data and ending with clearly defined themes that were supported by the participants' voices. Once I finished all the interviews and expanded my field notes, I moved into coding and analysis. I use in vivo qualitative software to keep everything organized. I imported my transcripts and field notes, as well as created folders for each participant. And I also tagged them by generation and job role, which really helped me when I wanted to compare patterns across groups. I started with in vivo coding, which was to pull the exact words and phrases from participants. And I used those as my first set of codes. This helped me to stay close to their voices and avoid over interpreting the data too soon. For example, when one participant stated younger employees just click around and figure it out, I actually used that as a code. And it helped me to start noticing patterns in how people talked about learning differences, confidence, as well as emotional responses that came up around using technology. I then moved to descriptive coding, where I started to summarize ideas into short labels. So if someone talked about inconsistent or unclear training, I labeled that as training gaps. If they expressed fear of automation, I used job security concerns, or I would use leadership inconsistency for conflicting managerial messages. This helped me to start to see common occurrences across the data. And this also helped to reveal similar ideas and how they were emerging across multiple interviews, especially around support systems, trust in technology, and cultural attitudes around the organization. So once I had those descriptive codes, I began grouping related ones into larger patterns. This is where my themes started to emerge. Themes such as workforce adaptation challenges, generational differences, leadership inconsistency, or resistance to change. This step helped me to shift from isolated observations to deeper, more connected insights. And throughout the process, I created and I regularly updated a code book. For every code, I included a name, a short definition for that code, when to apply it, as well as a participant quote. This helped me to stay consistent and it made it easier to adjust things as my thinking evolved. At one point, for example, I had separate codes for technology, anxiety, and fear of job loss. So I began to see an overlap. And when I noticed the overlap, I just began combining them into broader themes, and I combined those two into job security concerns. I also wrote memos throughout the coding process, and they were basically sticky notes and journal style notes that I used to reflect on what I was noticing, what questions were coming up, and how certain patterns would connect back to the literature as well as the theory. I would often write things such as, why do so many people say that they're trained, but they still feel unsure or uncertain about their training? And I would often put, this seems less about the tech and more about trust. So trust was frequent and coming up repeatedly. Those memos, they helped me to stay grounded in what participants were really saying, and they helped me think through some of the harder decisions when codes overlapped and continuously blurred together. So ultimately, in summary, I organized all transcripts and field notes into in vivo qualitative software and in order to attain familiarity with the data. This was followed by in vivo coding to stay close to the participant's language and generate my initial codes. I then applied descriptive and pattern coding to find broader meaning and to search for and review possible themes. Next, I created and I refined my code book for consistency to define and name my themes, and this was followed by the use of my analytic memos to reflect on my patterns and to stay grounded. In all, this process helped me in producing the report that ultimately led to the development of my 4 data-driven themes. Establishing trustworthiness, one of the key decisions I made was adapting my data collection approach when most participants decline audio recording. Rather than viewing it as a limitation, I implemented the structured note-taking process to ensure accuracy and consistency. I expanded my notes immediately after each interview to minimize recall bias, preserve the nuance of participants' language, and ensure that their experiences were represented authentically. To further reinforce the credibility of my findings, I used member checking at the end of each interview, summarized key points, and gave participants the opportunity to clarify or expand on their thoughts. In terms of data saturation, I compared each new interview with the ones before it to see if any new ideas or themes were developing. I knew saturation had been attained when no new insights were emerging. And throughout the study, I did remain mindful of my dual role, not just as a researcher, but also as someone who works in the industry. I was aware that my own experiences could possibly influence how I interpreted the data. So I maintained my reflective journal and regularly reviewed my notes and decisions throughout the data collection process. And that journaling was a big part of making sure that the final themes and findings truly reflected what the participants were saying and not just what I expected to find. So for my findings, theme 1 is workforce adaptation and the digital skills gap. One of the questions guiding my study was how digital transformation is affecting the aerospace manufacturing workforce. Many participants described feeling uneasy about shifting from hands-on instinct-driven work to relying on data and automation. Participant 5 stated, I used to rely on my gut feeling. Now I have to trust the data. That quote captured a real tension, and it connects to Roger's idea of complexity, where innovations that feel unfamiliar often face more resistance. What stood out is that this discomfort wasn't limited to just one age group. Regardless of generations, participants who didn't receive strong support or training routinely reported similar struggles. The challenge seemed then to be less about age and more about how the change was rolled out. Participant three's frustration with reverting to manual processes highlights another of Roger's concept, compatibility. If new tools don't fit with existing systems, people tend to fall back on what they know. This theme reinforced what Metaglue et al. And Hernandez de Menendez et al. Warned that poor integration and a lack of digital readiness can slow transformation rather than speed it up. But it also led to a deeper question: who's feeling this struggle the most and why? That took me to my next theme: generational differences. My second research question explored how generational traits influence how employees respond to digital transformation. This theme revealed some of the clearest contrast in learning styles, attitudes, and levels of trust in technology. Participants often compared how younger employees, such as millennials and Gen Z, tended to explore new tools freely, while older employees preferred structured guidance. Participant six put it this way: younger employees would just click around and figure it out, but employees my age want a structured training session. This aligned with Roger's idea of compatibility. People are more likely to adopt tools that match how they're used to learning. Reverse mentoring came up as a successful strategy. Participant four described it as a two-way learning opportunity, which could be used to help older employees build digital confidence while giving younger employees insight into manufacturing processes. Trust was another generational difference. As participant 15 noted, younger operators trust the software immediately, but I still double check everything. This tied into Roger's idea of trialability and observability. Some employees needed to test new tools and see them work before they fully trust them. These findings echo scholars such as Calvo, Peral, and Burton et al., who emphasize that generational differences are often underestimated. What's needed isn't just technical training, but leadership that understands how each generation learns, trusts, and adapts. That brings us to the next theme: the role of leadership. My third research question asked how leadership behaviors influence the adoption of Industry 4.0 tools. This theme made one thing clear: leadership isn't just important, it's definitely a deciding factor in whether digital transformation succeeds or stalls. Participants emphasized that leaders shape not just the vision, but the tone and pace of the change. When leaders were visible, communicative, and supportive, employees felt much more motivated and prepared to embrace new technologies. But when leadership was inconsistent or even at sometimes disengaged, as they pointed out, it created confusion and it slowed momentum and adoption. Participant eight summed it up by saying, people are more willing to adapt when they understand why the change is happening. This sentiment aligned with Cameron's positive leadership framework, which emphasized the power of purpose, transparency, and encouragement. Still, not everyone experienced strong leadership. Participant nine described uneven buy-in across management, pointing out that some leaders championed the change while others resisted the change. That kind of inconsistency created mixed messages. And as Rogers noted in his concept of observability, when employees don't see change being modeled from the top, it's harder for them to fully commit. Cortellazzo et al. Argued that transformational leadership, which is leadership that empowers and inspires, isn't just optional during digital change. It's essential. Technology may spark the shift, but it's leadership that sustains it. Ultimately, when leaders show up, communicate clearly, and guide their teams with consistency, transformation feels like a shared journey, not a top-down directive. That leads us to our final theme: how employees make meaning of these changes and the role that mindset plays in adapting to the future of work. The final theme moves beyond technology and training, and it addressed how people made sense of the change and how their sense of value and belonging is impacted by it. For many participants, especially those with more experience, the fear wasn't just about learning new tools, it was about being left behind. Participant five expressed the shift sometimes felt more threatening than helpful. That aligned with Roger's idea of relative advantage. When change is seen as a risk, resistance is expected. Frustration also came up around training. It wasn't just about unwillingness to learn, it was about how disconnected the training felt. Participant 3 said that it was easy to forget new skills when there is no follow-up or practical application. That matched with Trevino, Elizondo, and Garcia Reyes' emphasis on digital training only works when it's hands-on, relevant, and continuous, not just one-time sessions. Motivation shifted when growth opportunities were tied to change. And participant 7 stated that I'd be more invested if there were real incentives, like a promotion or raise. When employees see a path forward, they often commented that they were more likely to lean into the change. This theme reminded us that the transformation is not just technical, it's emotional. If organizations want change to stick, they need empathy, clarity, and a culture that reassures people that they still matter, even as everything around them evolves. Together, these four themes offer a picture of the complex people-centered challenges involved in digital transformation, from the disruption created by the digital skills gap to generational differences in how employees learn and adapt, to the pivotal role of leadership, and finally, to the emotional and cultural undercurrents of change. So here is a quick look at how my four themes came together. Each theme was shaped by patterns that I frequently saw over again throughout the interviews. Things such as fear of job loss, differences in how people learn, or how leadership communicated, or lack thereof communication. Here are just a sample of some of the quotes that I received from the participants. One that stood out to me the most is from participant 8 on the top row in the middle. That participant stated that it's not that we don't want to change, we just want to know that we still matter. That spoke to the emotion involved and associated with digital transformation. So, tying everything back to the literature, the findings closely aligned with Rogers' diffusion of innovations theory, in that employees were more open to adopting digital tools when they saw them as useful and compatible with their roles. But when tools felt too complex, especially for older workers, adoption seemed to slow. This support Rogers' emphasis on complexity and compatibility and highlights the need for clear hands-on training. The study also reinforced previous research on generational learning differences. As Hernandez de Menendez et al. And Burton et al. Noted, younger workers were more comfortable with technology, but sometimes lacked deep industry knowledge. Uh, Conversely, older workers had a wealth of experience, but often struggled with the pace of digital change. And when it came to leadership, servant leadership qualities such as emotional intelligence, individualized support, transparency, and openness really made a difference. When leaders showed that, people felt safer and more willing to embrace change. Based on the interviews and the literature, a few recommendations for future practice. There are a few things that aerospace organizations can implement right now. First, tailored training to generational learning styles. Some individuals prefer hands-on, others like digital modules. So blended learning is key. Second, formalize reverse mentoring to bridge the digital skills gap and boost collaboration across age groups. Third, invest in leadership development, especially in transformational and servant leadership to support adoption and reduce resistance. Fourth, create safe spaces like innovation labs so employees can explore new tools without fear. This supports Rogers' concept of trialability. And finally, future-proof the workforce by updating training policies and forming educational partnerships that reflect tomorrow's digital needs. Recommendations for future research. Since this study focused on one aerospace organization, future research should explore other companies as well as sectors to factor uh, attributes such as organization size and industry type, and how they are influenced by digital transformation. Also, longitudinal studies could track how digital training impacts job satisfaction, retention, and innovation readiness over time. Given the emphasis on transformational and servant leadership, future work might also examine how these leadership styles function in different manufacturing cultures or tech environments. Also, looking ahead to Industry 5.0, more research is needed on evolving workforce needs, especially in areas such as cybersecurity, responsible artificial intelligence, and data ethics to keep training and leadership strategies relevant. Conducting this study, it truly changed the way that I see currently digital transformation. And I've realized that it's not just about technology, it's about the people. Through these interviews, it did become clear that trust, support, and leadership shape how change is experienced. As someone working in the industry myself, I now see even more clearly how leadership can either drive transformation or hold it back. Having the right tools is not enough. Also needed is a workforce that is skilled, adaptable, and supported every step of the way. I do believe that the organizations that will thrive are those that embrace generational diversity, promote knowledge sharing, and create safe spaces for both digital natives and experienced professionals to learn from one another. As we move into Industry 5.0, where people and technology will be even more connected, the companies that will succeed will be the ones that put people first, not just systems. This study reminded me of one simple truth. Digital transformation doesn't succeed because of tools, it succeeds because of people. Empowered, supported individuals are the ones who will move this industry forward. Thank you for your time. And now I welcome your questions.
Thank you very much, James. I appreciate you presenting. You did very well, very detailed, and taking us through the process that you went through in the dissertation from the background to the beginning to your findings. So very well done. At this time, what I'd like to do is ask Dr. McElhoney if you have any questions or comments that you would like to ask of James regarding his presentation.
Thank you, and I concur with you, Dr. Perez, in terms of the quality of detail, not just quantity, but quality of detail, a comprehensive pulling together of how you were going to conduct your research, to documenting how you did it, documenting your findings, documenting your conclusions. It was like one tight package. And you know, when I read, like when you sent us your final defense to read through, when I read through that, for any student that I serve on their committee, I'm reading with questioning, okay, but is he or she addressing this? Did he touch on this? And every time I came to something, it wasn't long after I questioned in my own mind that you addressed it. So I have probably more comments here regarding your research than I have questions. I'm just going to mention those of what I wrote down as you were presenting, because even your presentation sealed up what was in your dissertation document. It all just so correlated together into this nice package. First of all, your study informed me regarding your field that I wasn't previously aware. So I feel like I grew in understanding the aerospace field. And that to me, being a lifelong learner, I've totally enjoyed. I found that your mentioning of the training and readiness needs and strategies in the aerospace field are similar to when I was working in higher education with faculty, as far as the needs. You know, when I first started in higher education and was working, this is not to talk about my past, but was working on my dissertation having to do with online learning and moving courses online, this caused me to reflect back to some of the difficulties that older existing faculty had in comparison to newer faculty in moving courses online. So there was similarity there. And so it does come down, exactly what you said, it does come down to people. And how do we assist the people involved in those fields? I love the diffusion of innovations theory. I studied it at length in the past. The use of that theory to me was a very strong point of your study. How you, again, networked the pieces from the theory to the findings. You created this net of information to your findings to the theory and gave relevance to how the theory definitely supported your study, your findings, your conclusions. Great job in pivoting when the interviewing where they didn't want to be recorded, and how you pivoted and you found strength in that process of having to pivot and making sure that you stayed focused on what they were saying rather than just interpreting from a personal viewpoint. You made it clear that you stayed away from that. I put research alignment graphic that you included in here. It's like, wow, that is exactly what you did. I mean, I put wow in all caps in my notes because that is exactly what you did throughout. And that graphic that you provided to us was exactly what you did. And I would emphasize that your prospectus was written in such a way that you were able to use it to follow it as a roadmap, a guide throughout your study, and just click away through your study following that that alignment graphic. Let's see. Again, your data collection and reporting of your findings to me was of a high caliber. I just totally enjoyed reading through your document and listening to your presentation today. Thorough analysis. I liked the funnel approach. I mean, you communicated in a way that drew us to the data that you collected and what your findings and those conclusions that went back to both the diffusion of innovations and to the research. And your conclusions also were, to me, spot on. So again, I had more comments than questions. You even, one of the things I was going to ask you, describe your experience in conducting your research. You even addressed that at the end of your presentation. So it's like, man, give me something here to ask you about. So what are you going to do with your findings? What are you going to do with this?
I really want to keep the conversation going. I'm really passionate about engineering, aerospace, people, leadership, and I really want to be able to bring these technologies together with people, and I want people to be able to work with and alongside the technologies and not be replaced by them. And throughout conducting my interviews, that was the number one thing that came up amongst all generations is eventually we're going to be replaced by these technologies. And being a researcher, I did my best to not engage, but in my mind, I can see the two coming together. And I can really envision a future of people working with and alongside the technology instead of the technology doing what human beings have been doing for so much longer.
So where can you use your influence from your study?
In the workplace, eventually, once I get my manuscript published, I like to maybe contribute to some publications, maybe some magazines, and just try to disseminate it and get it in front of anybody who wants to read it and who's interested, and just proceed from there.
Okay, well, do that while it's still fresh, because sometimes when you get finished with a major project like this, writing a dissertation, you think I just need some downtime. But when it's fresh on your mind, you're best able to communicate it effectively and have the greatest input into those areas that you can influence.
Got
Well
you.
done.
Okay. Uh,
Again, you didn't leave any stone unturned that you didn't make sure that the hole was plugged up. To me, I didn't find that with how I read through it. Excellent job.
thank you very much, Dr. McElhaney.
Thank you very much, Dr. McElhaney. Dr. Patterson?
Yes, good morning, everyone. Or yeah, I guess it's still morning. I apologize for my tardiness. So I had one of those days. You get pulled into those last minute conversations that you didn't ask for. So anyway, James, a great job. I just want to echo what my colleague just shared. I mean, you've done a great job in putting together a really powerful study, also articulating and um, I can tell that you took it from your background, and I love it because I knew when I first met you, I was like, well, how do you do this now based on your background? Being, I want to say type A personality, but a very different, type of learner or processor, for lack of a better word, right? And so you did a really great job in really connecting the dots here. I didn't have any like major issues or pushback as it relates to any of the work, but I was just curious, you know, um, what you found out. I mean, how are you going to be able to make this work, or this, let's say, this new continuous learning ecosystem work to scale from small to large to large? I mean, or small to medium, medium to large, larger to extra large. Do you feel that that's a way to do that? Because I think the biggest thing that we witness now, and what I see also happening nationally, is that the world is now, looking at AI, looking at other mechanisms to make the job easier, right? But also that also reflects a need to also maybe reduce the level of input from, us, the coordinators, the directors, right? And so how do you think that you're going to maybe articulate, or just kind of just a guess to looking at that from a scale perspective? Because I know that that's probably the next level. If you're in a bigger company, they're going to say, well, we can cut half, or let's say 10% of our overhead by just reducing, 12 jobs or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, first, I really believe that you have to start with where you are in my organization. And just from my study, a lot of people commented that they they didn't feel bright or intelligent enough to be able to utilize those technologies. I really believe that if you can encourage people and show them that they are worthy of it,
Hmm.
that they can learn, that they are capable of it, no matter where they are in life, no matter the background, no matter the experience, they can do it. And my organization is heavily unionized, which consists of quite a few people. And I really believe that if you can kind of snowball it and get maybe a handful of people to believe in it, then those people can work as change agents and put out the word and just kind of spread like wildfire. And the union and union leadership can go and take that message to management and organizational leadership. And if we as a organization can, I guess, be the front runners, then other organizations can see it and hopefully just take it and be an example and be a light and show that it can be done, and not do away with the human component completely. And I understand that. I understand it's about the bottom line and profitability and margins, but I really believe in the human component of it, and we're capable of it.
Okay. Okay. Um, and I know you mentioned about this cross generational, and just what you shared before, get more of a snowball effect from different generations. Do you feel like there is going to be a disconnect with, I guess the older generation, like where I'm now moving to? It just seems like as I get older, I shift to a different generation, right? And so naturally, that's one of my thoughts or concerns is that how do I, stay relevant, vibrant, and like you said, learning sometimes for us as we get older or more mature in our roles, it's not as I don't know. Well, and again, I guess it's per person, as far as individual, um, if you're always wanting to learn, you get what I'm saying. But there's
Yeah.
a
Oh
moment that
yeah.
we just kind of like, okay, information overload, and so maybe this. I don't know if there's anything to address there, but I don't know if you really thought about that, or as
Y- y-
we, when I say we're on the other, let's say, side of the fence there, that we're looking closer to retirement or different things like that, how do you now institute, this next generation to really, as you mentioned, to get the wildfire, because again, if they, if the model is not really um, significantly engaging of that generation, or, true mentorship is not really reinforced in different ways, how does that happen? Or at least in your thoughts, maybe.
it's funny because I did receive the same sentiment from the baby boomers and Gen X. And as soon as we sat down for the interview, a few of them just threw up their hands and said, "Hey, I'm out. I'm I only have 10 more years left. I'm going to be done with this. I
Mhm.
can't learn it." And then a lot of them would even say, "I can't even use this cell phone." And I would ask them, how do you program your phone? How do you get the most from your phone? And they always said, I give it to my kids, or I give it to my grandkids. So that kind of led me to believe that if you can reach the younger generation, then the younger generation can communicate it in a way that the older generation can understand. And that's when the reverse mentoring, the intergenerational collaboration, that's when that came into effect. And even in the workplace, oftentimes I found that the younger people are paired with the older people. And man, they get to exchanging stories, whether it's through music, work experience, talking about similar interests that their kids have. And once you can gain and grasp that attention, then oftentimes you can hook them. And if you can just kind of give them a little bit at a time, don't overwhelm people, just enough to keep them interested, show them that they're making progress. And man, before you know it, at our job, we use the crawl, walk, and run method.
Okay.
Crawling is, taking small incremental steps. Walking is, okay, you got a little bit of autonomy, but I'm still close by. Run means you're fully by yourself. So, and also implementing that framework, crawl, walk, and run. That's how I plan on doing it.
Okay, cool. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. When we look at a change model, it's very similar to different theories. Um, One comes to mind, the freeze unfreeze. I can't think of the
Mm,
first name, but um, kind of similar principles. But I really like the fact that you already have a model that you have seen and potentially how you can implement that. And so, what Dr. Julie mentioned earlier was really spot on. It's like, well, how do you now get this information out to, others to be, best practices, and um, really, honestly, for you to maybe open up a new opportunity for really the next level of training. That now
yes.
you become the expert and train the trainer, as long as you're able to effectively put together, digestible components that now fit together that people can assess pretty easily. So
Yes.
I don't have any other questions, Joe. I think he did a great job. We all, the fact that he addressed some of the things that what I was going to ask about his experience, he kind of addressed them in this presentation. I don't have any other, final questions. So,
Well, thank you, Dr. Patterson.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Patterson. James, I just have one question. Looking, or just, yeah, question and kind of comment. Looking at, now that you've come to this point, you've defended, you've gone through the process, you've gone through the journey. Looking back at your study and the experience, is there anything you would change your approach? Any findings that were surprising? And what advice would you give to students that have not reached this point that are attempting to get to this important milestone?
You know, going into my study, I would be remiss if I say that I didn't have um, any assumptions or expectations. The one that stood out the most to me was because I work with a lot of people from different generations, age-wise, is that I went in thinking, okay, well, the older generation, they don't want to have anything to do with technology. It's going to be all about the younger generation. But in some cases, it was the opposite. I encountered some younger people who didn't want to have anything to do with technology. And then vice versa, I encountered some older people who love technology. You know, some of the manufacturing workers, unbeknownst to me, had engineering backgrounds, had IT backgrounds, so they welcomed the technology. You know, they actually informed me about a lot of the advantages and disadvantages of it, how excited they were. So that was one thing that was surprising and that stood out to me and was also kind of an outlier. Going forward for a student approaching this point, I would say be thorough, be thorough. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I do believe that it's okay to have some expectations, but don't let it ultimately guide and over arc your study. It's okay to go in kind of assuming, but also be open and be flexible.
Excellent, excellent. Um, so that's good. I'm glad you had a good experience. I enjoyed working with you and so forth. So that's fantastic that you're able to reflect on that. At this time, what I'd like to do is I'm going to move you to a breakout room. And then
Okay.
myself, Dr. McElhaney and Dr. Patterson are going to deliberate and uh, make a decision, which it's, pass with distinction, pass with revisions, or no pass. So we'll discuss that. We'll come back and then we'll give you our decision. Okay. Just give me a second as
Okay.
I create it and put you in the breakout room. Okay.
Okay.
You should be going. You should be. Did you get your to move to that room yet?
No, I did not.
Two.
Mm, there it is. There
Okay,
we
go on
go.
and join. And then as soon as you're out, okay, fantastic. All right. What do you think? What are your thoughts?
So
Can
are
you hear me?
our
Yeah,
deliberations being recorded now?
yeah,
I was,
yeah, I'm looking to see if I think it's being recorded. Should I pause?
yeah, usually.
Hey, Dr. Perez,
Yeah, I can hear you now.
okay, awesome.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. I'm glad that we were able to get you back. We're now recording again. We deliberated and we discussed your presentation, the paper itself, and we all feel I'm very proud of you, and we are basically all very proud of what you've been able to do and accomplish. You did a very good job, and so forth. So we wanted to congratulate you that you passed. Yeah, you made it through your final defense. And not only did you pass, we agree that you passed with distinction.
Oh,
Okay,
wow.
so
Thank
so
you. Thank you.
yeah, yeah, you definitely, yeah, I mean, you're definitely gonna, you're gonna go out there and you're gonna do things like we discussed yesterday. We had a very long conversation yesterday. I think you're going to make a significant impact, and I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised. Once you're out there, and you have the big D in front of your name, the respect and the admiration and the opportunities that are going to be created for you, and just your attitude, your perseverance, and your belief in yourself are going to play a huge role in your success moving forward.
Wow, thank you all so much. So much. Yeah,
Okay.
I work, man. I worked so hard on this.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. I'd like to give
Yes.
Dr. McElhaney and Dr. Patterson the opportunity to provide some closing comments.
Okay.
Well, definitely congratulations, Dr. Robinson.
Yes.
And
Thank you.
again, make sure that you go ahead with next steps in the near future. Don't just shelve this. Determine
Okay.
the best way that you can use it to influence your sphere of influence.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I just echo what was just said. We're extremely proud of you, and even day one when I first met you, I am really excited to have you as a part of the cohort of your peers, and again, you're finally here. And I know we've
Yeah.
had conversations, and so take pride in not only doing a job but doing it extremely well done. And so um, again, look forward to seeing where you go with this material, and if I can assist or help in any way, please don't hesitate to reach out. Part of this is now, you know, getting it out to the world, and finding the right mechanisms to really get it out there. So however we can be an assistance. But Dr. Robinson, I know that that's a prideful word to hear, and congratulations again, sir.
All
And
right. Well,
thank you very much.
thank you very much, Dr. Patterson, Dr. McElhaney. James, if you just stay on, I just need to walk you through the process that we're going to go through, because I'm going to be sending out the report that'll go out for signatures and so forth. You still have to go through the publication, get your through ProQuest and so forth with ACU. So we'll discuss that here in just a minute. So with that being said, I'll just end the recording.
Thank you all very much. Thank you.